Hello, welcome to the 8th Plot. If you're watching this video, then it's because you've probably seen our Honest Movie News episode based in the Toy Story universe. In this video, I would normally explore the what if question the film asks, then answer in a slightly different way, hopefully allowing a new story to emerge, kind of like what we did in the Honest Movie News episode, where the world falls into chaos now that toys know their secret is out, they are alive and sentient beings. However, the what if question in Toy Story is very sort of niche and sort of based on magic, just like pure magic. There's no explanation given in the universe as to how Woody, Buzz or Bo Peep move around. So it makes it hard to explore in the same way, like inanimate objects having their own sort of personalities is a bit too similar to, say, a Robot Rebellion type franchise. And I would rather save some material for those kinds of films when we get to them. So I have no alternative story idea because, unlike what if time travel was real or what if we could hack people's dreams, because there's no understanding of the process in Toy Story as to how toys come alive, I can't really come up with an alternative scenario as to what would happen next. So instead, in this video, I'm simply going to review all four Toy Story films based on whether or not they answer the question they asked in a satisfactory manner. So, what was the question? What if toys were alive? So how does the franchise explore this question, and are the films good or bad because of that particular answer? Now, I'm not looking at voice acting or criticising the CGI technology used to create Toy Story. That was about 30 years ago. Because wow, like the Uncanny Valley? No, it's more like the Uncanny Grand Canyon. So, oh, by the way, here's an alternative rendering of Buzz and Woody. That's more horrific than the Xenomorph we looked at in our last episode. So yeah, not criticising how they made Toy Story for its time, and I'm also not looking at things like plot or character growth, voice acting, any kind of thing like that. No. Are the films good or bad based on how they answer the what if question they posed? Let's start with film 1. Now, I think Toy Story 1 answered its what if question brilliantly, mostly through its world building. So it asks, what if toys were alive? Answer: toys would revere their owners and crave their attention and any chance to be played with. This is the answer Toy Story gives. This makes perfect sense as an answer because toys exist, we create them to give children something to play with. If that is their purpose, it makes sense that that purpose would carry over into their personalities and their wants and desires. All of them want to be played with. And then we see a sort of toy culture form around this reverence for their child. They worry about being replaced. They allocate roles in playtime. They protect their child. They freak out when new toys arrive. All worries we could actually imagine the toy having when they're so hyper-focused on, will my owner include me in their next playtime? It expands on that answer by focusing on Woody, the most played with toy, and Andy's favourite. It extrapolates his jealousy he feels when Buzz takes up time with Andy. Again, this makes sense. Toys want to be played with, children do form attachments with individual toys, and if those toys had personalities, they would always want to be a part of playtime. In the same way that, as humans might have a best friend, and then a new person comes along and starts to split their friend's time, which we don't like, and that could apply to their toys. The toys also fear being redundant, being lost in a move, or just being lost casually. And that's great for the original question. It shows the toys understand their place in the world, that they need to, in a sense, subtly manipulate the world, such as spying on humans. And what with Woody knocking Buzz out the window, they know how to make the world work to their advantage so they get to play with the child. The film also covers relationships between humans and toys, and takes perfectly natural things humans do to toys and manifests them in the ways toys think about their owners. Andy, in a very human manner, treats Woody as his best friend, a close associate he shares his life with. Even Buzz doesn't completely distract from this. Woody, in turn, feels Andy is his whole world and his friend, finding a purpose and meaning in being Andy's favourite toy. Even Andy marking his toys as his property, something lots of children do, rather than creating feelings of slavery, I guess, like that kind of response from the watcher. No, the toys feel that they are owned and appreciated for it. So the toy culture starts to build, and even Sid, the bad guy in film 1, has a relationship with toys which we can recognise. He converses with them, he has a relationship with them. He does do it in a way that would probably get him sent to a Young Offenders Institute one day, well, if Woody hadn't staged a rather horrifying intervention. But it's still a very human reaction and sort of cultural or practice that children do with toys. He operates on them, but he converses with them when it happens. He imbues them with a personality from his perspective. He treats them like patients, and he loves to take them apart and, yes, enjoy mutilating. Now, kids do this quite naturally with their toys, to take them apart, glue bits on, paint them, change their costumes around. Children like to experiment with their toys and change them into something new or to match their imagination. So Sid's playing out a natural role. So Toy Story 1 does a great job because it takes toy culture and manifests it in the film, in the characters' choices, their lifestyles, what they like and don't like, and also their love and desire to be played with. So that's a great answer to that question of what if toys were alive. Now let's look at the second film. Toy Story 2 asks the same sort of question. What if toys were alive? It also tags on another question because the first film answered that question so well. So now it's, what if toys were alive and they realise that one day their purpose will be fulfilled? Woody, the main character in the adventure, is dealing with the relationship between kids and toys and how the passing of time affects both. Specifically, what happens as time passes and an owner grows up, because when a child is grown up, the toy is no longer played with. Why they were brought or given to the child is fulfilled. They've played with the toy, it's served its purpose. Woody realises at some point in Toy Story 2 that his time is almost up. His injury and being placed on the top shelf are eye-openers for him about how soon the top shelf will be his place from now on, and he'll never come down from it. Woody's crucial choice in the film is when he decides to stay with Al to be sold to a toy museum in Japan, staying with Jessie and the prospector. He accepts and looks forward to this option when Jessie and the prospector warn him that one day his child will grow up and he will no longer be played with. This is another layer of realization for Woody that his purpose is almost fulfilled. Being put on the top shelf didn't deter him from staying with Andy, from leaving Andy, but it didn't make him doubt staying. Jessie and Stinky Pete's stories solidifies his decision and his realization his time is nearly up. Now, all toys in our world that don't have personalities, we assume, some of them are very beloved, and there's two choices: we bin or store them away or display them. Two outcomes that the film runs through. Woody faces the prospect of being stored, but in the film offers the very real point that he'll be turned into collectible, that people will remember him and love him for the nostalgia that he encourages people to feel. And this is true of all toys. They will be stored or they will be cultural and historical artifacts. In a sense, Woody will continue to be played with by his owner. It will just be through a glass case. At least he'll get some degree of satisfaction by having people watch him and show joy that they have seen him. So when Woody is given his shot at immortality, at being a museum piece, he takes it, realising that the alternative is to be stored. And what Toy Story 2 does so well is that that's a real choice for a toy. Yes, toys don't come alive, we think, but we make that choice for him. But then Buzz convinces him otherwise, because what Buzz does is appeal to a higher, essentially, morality. That he tells Woody that he isn't a collector's piece. He is a collector's piece. He is a toy. And he points out that Woody would never be played with again behind a glass case. And that changes Woody's mind. And that's a great additional answer to the question of what if toys had personalities, because it reiterates the first film's answer that a toy's purpose is to serve their child, and that is their highest calling. It emphasizes the evil of Stinky Pete, the prospector, because he never fulfilled that true purpose of a toy, always stuck in the box, always a display item. He actively hates Woody for actually having or thinking that being played with toy is better. Buzz says to Woody, he's a toy, not a collectible, stating outright what Woody is and what he should be doing. Pete implores Woody to be a collectible, a museum piece, because it's the only way for him to avoid being boxed up forever. Pete wants Woody to embrace what he himself has embraced. However, according to Buzz, that is not what a toy is. But a brilliant answer to the question of what if toys were alive. Answer, they have to face a choice, fulfill their purpose to the bitter end, or be put on a shelf, or become a collectible. But the collectible is not the true purpose of a toy. The true purpose of a toy is to be played with and to be put aside one day. In the real world, we make that choice for toys, but the choice we make is manifested in Woody's thought process and decision making. As Woody says to Jessie, one more moment of playtime is better than a lifetime behind a glass case. That's an excellent answer. It reflects how humans deal with toys as we age. Woody is told not to embrace a life of being admired as a collectible because it distracts from his purpose in life, which is to be played with by children. A toy becomes a collectible, it isn't made to be a collectible, although I suppose some are now. And that's a great answer. It is so much about, it's a pathway for toys to take. The bin, storage, the shelf, or becoming a collectible. Having never been played with, Stinky Pete doesn't understand the joy of being played with a child, and in fact resents it. And that's why he's a great villain as well, because he is a reflection of something Woody never experienced. And it's actually sending the message of this film that, in a sense, sacrificing immortality for a short-term but very pure gain is preferable. I don't know. What do you think? Is that a good message for Toy Story to send? That you could be given immortality as this much admired historical toy, or fulfill the purpose of a toy to be played with by a child and have that child's love. Okay, time to move on to film 3. Book 3 is also a great film. So not book 3, film 3 is also a great film because it offers an excellent answer to the what if question by again tagging on its own another question and answering it nicely based on previous answers given in Toy Story 1 and 2. So film 1 asks, what if toys were alive? Film 1 says that they would seek out their owner's affection because they're alive, because they're toys and alive. Film 2 additionally asks, what if toys were alive, and what if they also had to face the fact that their children would move on from them one day? And answers with, despite their child growing up, a toy should ultimately remain loyal to their child, despite other opportunities, continue to be a toy, even if there's another chance. Now, the third film offers another question tagged on. So, what if toys were alive, sought attention from their children, remain loyal to them, because that's their purpose, but also have to face the fact that their time is over. They have reached the end. It's not in the future. The future's not here. Their time isn't going to continue. They're not going to be played with again. They're going to be stored away or binned. The time is now. What does the toy do next from that point forward? Now, all the toys in Toy Story 3 know their purpose is fulfilled. At the beginning of the film, the toys are facing this prospect of the attic as Andy leaves for college and starts a new stage in his life. They will no longer be used as toys for the rest of their existence. They're in the attic forever. That's what they're facing. They know their time has come. Now, obviously, there is the prospect that they will be handed down or sold on to another child, but the toys don't know that, and instead they think the attic is all there will be. When fate intervenes and the toys are taken away from Andy, from their perspective, they get the signal that their purpose has ended and they've got 3 possible outcomes to go with. These outcomes are viewed through the lens of Andy got rid of us. They interpret what happened as being Andy has had enough, and essentially they've had enough of Andy. So one thing they could do, face the attic and go quietly into that good night. In other words, return to Andy and allow themselves to be stored. Woody goes with this. It's his intention to return to Andy, trusting that Andy will play with them one time and always remember them. And so he decides to remain loyal, something he's learned from the past 2 films. The second option is new ownership. 2 types of ownership are portrayed. One, the communal ownership, which is kind of impersonal. The toys are played with by multiple children, presumably forever in the daycare centre. It's not ideal for the main toys, but by the end of the film, some of them accept it because it fulfills their original purpose. The second type is more personal ownership, when they get given by Andy to Bonnie, similar to and they sort of cycle back through their previous relationship with Andy, but with Bonnie. And that's something that lots of toys go through, getting handed down and then being used by lots of children, or being handed off to one particular children, and the cycle of toy child ownership continues. And it allows the toys to continue their purpose and essentially restart it and find new fulfillment, and that's the happy ending. The third choice in the film is destruction. When the toys hold hands in the furnace in the film, perhaps the saddest thing I've ever seen in a Pixar film, that in a way that's an option for toys. We're watching it as former toy owners or toy owners, thinking, oh my goodness, that happened to a toy I threw once. It's really sad. I don't know why, but it is. Like, He-Man, where are you? Oh well. So the film asks, what if a toy fulfills its purpose with its original child? Well, either it accepts storage, Woody's option, accepts or seeks out new ownership, which is Buzz and the others, or it is destroyed. Potential of all the toys there at the end. And everyone who has ever owned a toy kind of knows that every toy they've ever owned faced one of these options, and you made the choice of what to do with them. So the film answers its question by, again, sort of simulating in this from the perspective of the toys, a sort of culture of owning a toy. Like, we give toys away, we give them to new people, we destroy them, or we store them in the attic, never to think of them again. It's such a realistic outcome for toys that the toys in the story must go through the same sort of life cycle. It makes complete sense that the writers would weave it into the narrative. Now let's take Lotso for a second, the villain of this story. He has a very different path because he didn't get given away, he didn't get destroyed, and he didn't get put in the attic. His life cycle as a toy was cut by tragic circumstances. And that's actually a sort of rare circumstance overall. Lotso was the favoured toy of a child, left behind by cruel parents, and was replaced. Now, replacement of toys is actually kind of rare, I find. Like, families are on budgets, and I guess it's different for different people, but for the most point, toys that get broken are repaired, but they don't get replaced. I don't think I've ever replaced a toy in my lifetime. Obviously, if a toy breaks, you go find a new one, but I've never taken an old toy I loved and replaced it with another. It does happen, but it's a rarity. And in a sense, this defines Lotso. He cruelly, unfortunately, however you want to see it, had his time with his child cut short. And it obviously causes bitterness and resentment. And he also projects that onto the 2 other toys that were with him, who hadn't been replaced. But he can't go out alone. He can't let them get back into the child's life. He has to take them down with him. And that obviously feeds his character in the story, why he does what he does. And again, that's a real pathway for a toy of being replaced, and the transfer from the old Lotso to the new Lotso, like the transfer of love and joy, it happens with children who get that replacement. But again, it's so, if you could imagine, toys being real, it feels so right that that's what would happen. That's the life cycle of a toy and how they would respond to it. It's so accurate because it reflects our relationship with toys. When the toys are handed on to Bonnie at the end of the film, their purpose will be played out all over again, but with Bonnie. They've transferred how they were with Andy to Bonnie, and the cycle begins again. And that's possibly the happiest ending that any toy can have, especially if its purpose is to be played with. The writers present us with all these outcomes that a toy could experience, and does so with a huge gut punch of emotion. So let's move on to the fourth and final film. Film 4 once again adds another question on top of the other questions, expanding upon it. So we've had, what if toys are alive? They sought affection from their owners, remain loyal to them, and when the end came of their life cycle with their owner, switch their loyalty to a new child to redo their purpose all over again. The question that number 4 tags on is, what do you do when you realise that when a toy realises that they don't have to be just a toy and they can be so much more? Film 4 is a radical departure from previous films, but still brilliant, because it continues to realistically portray the life cycle of a toy and questions what a toy is. In the real world, toys are just things to be played with. That's why they are created. But as Toy Story 4 shows, humans think of different roles for different toys outside of what they were created for, such as museum pieces in Toy Story 2, or things to be experimented on in Toy Story 1. The Toy Story franchise has indicated that toys should just consider themselves to be toys, such as what Woody and Buzz talk about in number 2. But it is possible for them to grow beyond that original purpose. And this is shown in 2 characters in film 4, Forky and Gabby Gabby. Forky is a toy, but he's also an assemblage of bits and pieces, trash, as he says. And this indicates that a toy can be made out of anything, which is true in the world. Kids make toys out of cardboard boxes. The different things that Forky is made of have different purposes, but when combined by a creative child, have a new purpose, a toy, to be played with by their child. Woody once believed that his purpose was to be loyal to Andy, and then to Bonnie. But he learns through Forky's short life as he knows him, that you can have a different purpose. A toy can come built out of other items with their own purpose. So why can't a toy be more than that? We can change the purpose that a toy has. We can play with them in different ways. Now, Bo Peep has already realised this herself and has also maxed it out, realising that being given away by her owner, she's essentially been freed from her purpose and she can find her own one. There's a bit of heavy slavery imagery there, but it's kind of unintentional by the writers probably, because we're still dealing with toys, not humans. But Bonnie, by being given away by her owner, realises she can be so much more. Gabby Gabby believes that she is a particular type of toy and must be played with in a particular type of way because of the instructions and the stories surrounding her character as it was manufactured. But then, during the film, she has to change her perceptions, ditch previous expectations of what her life as a toy should be, and then take on a new role as a toy, but doing something different. She thought she should be in tea parties, but now she's comforting a child and being, a comfort to a lost child. Toy Story 4 tags on a new question, builds upon it by recognizing that toys grow beyond their original purpose. Again, a true reflection of the culture of toys in our world. We change them. We get really creative with them. We all did this as children. We all changed the nature of a toy, remade it into something else. Film 4 answers the question, what if toys realized they could be more than a toy? By suggesting that a toy will find a new purpose and love it. Now, toys aren't alive, but humans repurpose toys and things to be different toys, and we love them for it. And this kind of joy would be felt by a toy if it was alive, to feel the joy of being repurposed, but also being played with again. To end this video, I think it's clear that what makes the Toy Story films great is that the writers understood the culture surrounding toys. We favour new toys, we replace them, we destroy them, we make them collectibles, we repurpose them, and we create our own from trash. This is real. The idea of a toy being alive isn't real. That's made up for the purposes of the film, imagined by the writers. But if they were alive, surely they would experience exactly the same things that the culture surrounding only toys would have. But we're seeing it simply from the toy's perspective, and it mirrors, in a sense, how humans feel towards their own toys. The Toy Story films are brilliant because everything the toys go through is something a toy would go through alive or dead. So as we, the audience, we don't think that what we're seeing is so far-fetched, and therefore we think it's a great film. It makes sense within reality. Think of the film Sharknado. What if sharks were sucked up into a tornado and deposited in a city? Every answer in that film to that question is stupid and dumb, just like the question. But they're fun films to watch because it's just kind of fun. But we know they're bad films because the scenario and the answers don't satisfy at all. But in Toy Story, we are given a crazy scenario, and we think this should fail because it never explains what magic animates the toys. But the life of Woody, Buzz, Bo Peep, Mr. Potato Head, the pig, whatever his name was, is so like what we do to toys that it works. Now, I thought of a good theory actually as to why the toys are alive. What if toys gain their souls, their personalities, because they get them from their child? Maybe if they ever do a fifth film of Toy Story, they should explain where the magic comes from. Very difficult thing to do, but that's a potential way. Children bring them to life. We all bring these things to life by putting a bit of our life into them to bring them alive. And then your villain could be a toy that never really got enough to come alive. I don't know. Vague. Who cares? Never mind. I'll throw that out there to end the video. Thanks very much for watching. If you think a Toy Story franchise answers its central question in a different way, and that's what makes it great, put in the comments. Add your own suggestions as to what, if toys were alive, what could you do with them? Scenario, how could you answer that question? Don't forget to check out other videos on this channel. Check out my website, www.mjury.co.uk. Like and subscribe. You know, you've been on YouTube. I'm sure you know what the deal is. And yeah, think about your own Toy Story inspired, stories. In a way, Chucky, that film series, is also what if toys were alive, but it answers it a completely different way. And like I said at the beginning, toys being alive are kind of like other things that we consider inanimate to be alive, like robots. So it's just if you can nail down what brings them alive, allows you to move forward with a different scenario. Thanks for watching. Have a good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.